All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest questions there is, a question that gets to the very heart of what it means to be human.
So I've got a question for you, a really big one. Who are you? And I don't just mean your name or what you do for a living. I mean, who are you really? Deep down. How do you even begin to define what makes you, well, you?
Well, to even start answering that question, psychology gives us two really important concepts to chew on. First, there's yourself. That's your inner world, right? Who you believe you are. And then there's your personality. That's how you consistently show up in the world. To really get a handle on who you are, we've got to look at both. So let's start with the self.
Okay, first up, let's unpack this idea of the self. Think of this as the very core of your identity, the foundation of who you are that's being built, brick by brick, your entire life. You know, in psychological terms, it's basically the sum total of all your conscious experiences, your thoughts, your feelings, everything you think about yourself. It's almost like it's the story you're constantly telling yourself about yourself. And you know, that story we tell ourselves, it's not just one simple narrative. It actually has two major parts. On one side, you've got your personal identity. These are all the things that make you feel like a unique individual. You know, I'm a hardworking person, or I'm a great singer. But then, on the other side, there's your social identity. This is the part of you that connects you to different groups, like I'm a North Indian, or I'm part of this community. Both of these are absolutely crucial pieces of the puzzle that is you. Okay, now this is where things get really fascinating. Your self isn't just one thing. It actually plays a double role. There's the I, that's the self as the actor, the one who does things and knows things. You know, like when you say, I know who I am. But then there's also the me. That's the self that gets observed, the one that is known, like in the phrase, I am someone who gets hurt easily. You see, you are both the one doing the observing and the one being observed at the same time. Pretty cool, right? All right, so we've got a handle on what the self is. But now let's talk about how it actually works. Because your sense of self isn't just some abstract story. It's like an inner engine, and it's powered by two super important forces, self-esteem and self-efficacy. Okay, first up, self-esteem. I think we all kind of know this one, right? It's pretty straightforward. It's the value you place on yourself. It's your own personal judgment call on your worth. Are you good enough? It can be high, low, or, somewhere in the middle. And get this. This whole process of judging ourselves starts so early. I mean, think about it. By the time they're 6 or 7, little kids are already forming their self-esteem. They're asking themselves these big questions in 4 main areas. Am I doing well in school? That's academic competence. Are other kids my friends? That's social competence. Am I any good at sports? Physical competence. And of course, how do I look? Physical appearance. This is where the foundation for our self-worth really gets laid. So why is this such a big deal? I mean, who cares, right? Well, it matters a lot. Self-esteem isn't just some fluffy feeling. It has totally real-world consequences. Kids with high academic self-esteem, they actually do better in school. And on the flip side, low self-esteem is consistently linked to things like anxiety and depression. It's a powerful force that can shape our lives in some pretty major ways. Now, running right alongside self-esteem is another powerhouse belief, self-efficacy. This one isn't about your worth, it's about your belief in your own abilities. It's that gut feeling that says, yeah, I can handle this. A strong sense of self-efficacy is what gives people the confidence to tackle challenges head-on and feel like they're actually in the driver's seat of their own life. But here's a really important thing to remember. That feeling of control and even this entire idea of self we've been talking about, it's not the same everywhere. It's not built in a vacuum. It is deeply, profoundly shaped by the culture we grow up in. So let's zoom out for a second and see how the world around us helps define who we think we are. And this image just illustrates that cultural divide perfectly. Take a look. In a lot of Western cultures, the self is seen as this totally separate, independent thing. You have a clear boundary between you and the group. But in many collectivistic cultures, like the Indian perspective shown here, that boundary is way more fluid. It's permeable. The self and the group kind of blend and overlap. And that one difference? Wow, it can change how people see everything, from what success means to their obligations to their family. Okay, so we've been deep inside the mind, exploring the self. Now let's pivot and look at the outside. Let's talk about personality. Those more stable, predictable patterns in how you act that really define you to the rest of the world. So the word personality actually comes from the Latin word persona, which was the mask that actors used to wear in ancient theater. Kind of cool, right? And in psychology, it's pretty similar. It refers to your unique and relatively stable qualities, the consistent way you respond to things over time and in different situations. It's basically what makes you, you, in a predictable way.
So one of the oldest ways to think about personality is by using types. This approach basically tries to sort people into neat little boxes, and this idea has been around forever. Seriously, from the ancient Greek physician Hippocrates and his 4 bodily fluids, to the 3 doshas in Indian Ayurveda, all the way to more modern ideas like the famous type A personality. You know, the impatient, work-obsessed person.
But let's be real for a second. Do people really fit neatly into boxes? Not really, right? And that's exactly why a lot of psychologists now prefer the trait approach. A trait isn't an either-or thing. It's more like a slider, a spectrum. So for example, you aren't just shy or not shy. You land somewhere on that shyness scale, from just a little bit to a whole lot.
Gordon Allport, who is a real pioneer of this way of thinking, saw our traits arranged in a kind of hierarchy. So at the very top, you have what he called cardinal traits. These are super rare. They're so dominant that they practically define a person's entire life. Think of Gandhian nonviolence. Then, for most of us, we're defined by our central traits. These are the main 5 to 10 words you'd use to describe someone, like warm, sincere, or diligent. And finally, at the bottom, you have secondary traits. These are just your preferences and attitudes that only pop up in certain situations, like, likes mangoes. It gives a much richer picture of a person, doesn't it?
So there you have it, the 2 sides of the coin. On one side, you have the inner, more fluid world of the self, and on the other, you have the outer, more stable patterns of personality. And really, figuring out who we are is this lifelong journey of understanding how those 2 things interact. And that leaves us with a really big, fascinating question to chew on. If your personality is supposedly stable, but your self can be changed and shaped by your experiences, then what parts of you are actually set in stone? And which parts can you actually change?